Fashionable, desirable, good looking, all of these words not traditionally associated with a large 7-seat family car. No, they're more spacious and utilitarian, all of those other unsexy phrases. Well, Peugeot successfully managed to merge these two worlds together in the form of its 5008 SUV a few years ago. The car's recently been updated, and we've got one in to see what's new. I think it's fair to say that since the 5008's last all-new generation, it's been largely successful because it went through this metamorphosis from ungainly, slightly Elephant Man-esque MPV into a bold and actually rather handsome SUV. And this is a trend that we've seen throughout the industry now. Look at all the other brands that have dumped MPVs that are largely unwanted by people now in favour of more fashionable and attractive SUVs. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. People need a lot of space, SUVs are big cars, and the packaging in an SUV affords a lot of possibilities. Now, the restyling of this facelifted car primarily focuses on the nose, where you'll notice it's got this rather mesmerising grille to the front of it that uses these shards and gaps to create some sort of illusion that blends the mirrored grille into the coloured bodywork. I really like that. The lights have also been reprofiled to match, and the bumper has a slightly more jutted effect to it. Now, this specific car is a top-of-the-line GT premium car with an astronomical price tag, and perhaps one that most people won't pay for a 7-seat people mover. However, it does show this car with all the bells and whistles, including these really nice 19-inch alloy wheels. The 5008 obviously has a big glass house because it has to contain a lot of people and things, but instead of boring flat surfaces, they're all contoured, and there's this really nice prominent shoulder line towards the rear that gives it a lot of character. Now, in profile, the 5008 actually has quite a boxy rear, and that's obviously for practicality reasons, but it's been nicely disguised by swooping elements of chrome and this diamond roof effect. Whilst there are a fair number of 7-seat SUVs out there now, I think the 5008 remains one of the best looking. The interior of the 5008, just like the smaller 3008, is a really pleasant place to be. Cascading fascias, interesting high quality materials creates a cabin that feels quite plush. And beyond that is more interesting to look at than many of its rivals. Designers have seriously spent some time making this an attractive place to spend time. This top specification GT premium car gets things like wooden inserts, heated and massaging quilted leather seats, and a huge glass panoramic sunroof. From your elevated driving position, Peugeot's small steering wheel sits below the digital cockpit, a customizable display full of rich graphics and a map function that's not too dissimilar from Audi's virtual cockpit. New for this year and available on mid-specification cars and up is a 10-inch infotainment system with a much bigger screen than before. The system is brisk enough and the increase in screen size is welcome. However, the menus are quite text-based and would rather something more visual to just glance at whilst you're on the move. A godsend are Peugeot's piano shortcut keys that allow you to access menus quickly via physical buttons. Even though below the knee there are a few questionably scratchy plastics, it's a high quality cabin overall. Those in the second row are also treated to some high quality seating, with each individual post being able to slide forwards, backwards and recline. Legroom is very good, in fact better than that in the 3008 as you might expect, and headroom is good also, although the glass panoramic roof does eat into some space. The deployable boot seats easily fold out of the floor in one clean motion, can be done one-handed, and provides enough space for children. Boot space with the rear seats in place is 166 litres, or enough for a couple of bags. However, fold those two back seats flat and you have a huge 952 litres to play with. Fold both the third and second row flat and you'll have 2,150 litres. Now, as mentioned, this Peugeot 5008 is the best of the best whenever it comes to trim levels, but this specific car also has the top dog engine. That's a 2-litre turbocharged diesel engine. It's got 175 brake horsepower and 400 Newton meters of torque. So how is it? It's really good, and I mean that in like the traditional sense of a diesel engine. It's got that low down torque, it's responsive after just a little bit of turbo lag once that turbo spools up, but that torque is available from really low in the rev range, which is just perfect for lugging this car along with a full complement of family and all the gubbins that goes with them, and if you're towing regularly, this may well be the engine to go for. It's a really muscular, confidence-inspiring engine that has no problem with this car's scale whatsoever. Now, it does come with the usual diesel engine foibles in that when it's a bit cold it can sound rough and ready and a little unsettled, but once it's up to temperature and you're cruising along, it's a real smooth operator. It's quiet and refined and effortless in the way that it deploys its performance. It's nice. It's the right engine for this car. However, there is a lower powered version of this 2-litre diesel engine, which is certainly worthy of consideration if you're looking at lower levels of tax. Around town, it's got that low end get up and go to get out of junctions or pull out at roundabouts without feeling vulnerable. But also on the motorway, it has effortless overtaking abilities, regardless of the size of the car or how much payload you have on board, children, prams, boxes, stuff to go to the tip or other. Despite this SUV's chunky looks, it can only be had in front-wheel drive guise, and that was the same pre-facelift or for this facelifted car. And that's totally fine, to be honest, because the vast majority of these are going to be doing the school run, they're going to be going backwards and forwards to the tip, they're going to primarily find themselves in an urban environment. And the chassis provides a nice, grippy, reassuring feel as standard anyway, so I'm not sure anybody's really going to be missing all-wheel drive. Now, power in this 5008 is sent to the ground via an 8-speed automatic transmission, and leave it to its own devices and it's perfectly smooth. The changes are actually pretty imperceptible, so good job there, Peugeot. Select a more manual setting via these wheel-mounted paddles and it's quite easy to catch it napping, so it's best to leave it to its own devices. Why car manufacturers continue to put selectable drive modes in something like a 7-seat people mover such as this is beyond me, but they're here anyway. So you've got normal, which is normal, you have sport, which firms up the steering and increases the throttle responsiveness, and then you have eco, which tries to claw back some MPGs by dulling the throttle. Fuel economy has actually been pretty good in this. Peugeot claim between 44 and 54 mpg, and I've been getting in mixed conditions about 50 miles to the gallon, which isn't bad for a vehicle of this size and means that Peugeot are being quite realistic with their claims. In terms of overall refinement, the Peugeot 5008 actually acquits itself really well. Okay, there's a big amount of empty space in here, which means there's not a lot to intercept noise once it comes into the cabin. So road noise can be a bit boomy in here at times, but it's nowhere near as bad as some rivals, and it's actually far better than you'd expect from most 7-seat cars. Ride comfort is actually really good, though I wouldn't recommend going for these 19-inch alloy wheels because certainly at low speeds they have a habit of crashing into things like potholes. Go for a lower specification and a more sensible size of tyre and that is cured, because the damping and the overall suspension settings in this car are geared towards comfort. However, that doesn't mean that it doesn't behave itself through the corners. Swing this 7-seat bus into a series of twisting corners and it doesn't flop about all over the place or list like an old wooden ship. Instead, it resists the roll pretty well, which, considering its height and its weight, is quite impressive. But even in sport, don't go expecting a particularly involving driving experience because it's a big 7-seat people carrier after all. Peugeot's geared this towards comfort, so you feel a bit detached from what's going on beneath you. There's not very much communication coming back through the wheel, and on a comfort perception level that works. You feel detached from what's going on, you feel separated from the road, and that's a good thing for a nice relaxing drive. What I will say though is that the little steering wheel on this Peugeot does give the car an added sense of agility, and it's particularly helpful whenever you're trying to parallel park this car and you need to put in some big steering manoeuvres quickly. I really like the Peugeot 5008 in petrol or diesel specifications, and this top spec car, whilst maybe unrealistic for most families to go and buy it considering its 41k price tag, it does show it off in the light that Peugeot sort of envisioned it as. Why does an MPV have to be dumpy? Why does having a 7-seat car need to lack style and attitude and some sort of avant-garde nature? It doesn't. The 5008 is a really quite handsome car, I think, particularly considering its size. It has a lovely interior, a really nice driving manner, and it's just an utter joy to cover long distances in. Now, as mentioned at the top of this video, this GT premium car is probably not going to be the first choice for people with big families or young children or lots of dogs. However, the 5008 as a whole is a brilliant all-round package. It's well equipped as standard, and whilst this one's £41,000, a car with plenty of toys can be had for £29,000, which is a far more reasonable sum. I think it looks great, it drives well, it's a lovely motorway cruiser, and the cabin is a brilliant place to spend time, be it with 7 people or just one. Head to YesAuto.com for the latest car news and reviews, and don't forget to check us out on social media. We're in all the usual places such as Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Simply search for YesAuto.